everybody to produce something, just anything. Give me a napkin drawing and I will buy it. Just take a shot and be understanding that there are people out here, such as us at GMI, that are ready to put you on our shoulders and carry you through town square.
Welcome everybody to the Click Podcast, where this is your show for all things DAO operations. The DAO space is hard to track on your own. There's a lot going on every day. And with this podcast that we've brought to you, this is where we get all the insights and alpha from the DAO operators who work at the frontier of everything that is cutting edge crypto. I'm your host, Abhishek Ajit, and along with me is my co-host, Abhishek Sanavne. Hi, Abhishek, what's up?
Hey man, doing good. Hi everybody.
Fantastic. Glad to have you on the show, buddy. For this episode, I consider this special because with us we have a team that I consider to be the apostles of a game that I really respect, and the sort of work that they do coming in and talking about the game and the sort of content they create about it. It's a replica for how communities should evangelize, and I really respect them. So with us, we have Anthony Shepard, Mycaleum NoFuturistic from the GMI Guild of Aavegotchi. The GMI Guild is a content creators collective that's designed to focus purely on all things Aavegotchi. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah,
Oh,
likewise. Excited for the show.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. It's amazing to have you here. Before we get things rolling, I know that there's a lot to catch up on with respect to Aavegotchi, but this is all about you now. You have all the attention on you guys now. Let's talk about you for a second. Talk about how did what got you all into crypto and DAOs, and what kind of the setup before you found the Gotchiverse. Anthony, why don't you go first?
Sure. Yeah, I work on animated short films with Zim and Timo. That's my production company with Gurleen Rai, and she does all the animation. I do all the music. Before that, and continuing through that, I'm a musician I've been very independent my whole career. I've done a lot of local shows and a lot of local releases, and I've done everything on my own. And then I got into crypto because I was like seeing this opportunity with NFTs for independent artists to really have even more access to the digital tools and the digital distribution. And so, yeah, now that's where I find myself trying to like bridge that gap between music, film, culture, and crypto, and the financial tools to set artists free.
How did you figure out that crypto was the main avenue for you? I see that with the music NFT scene, where a lot of these artists, they just don't have that sort of financial sustainability from the way the world operates. And what was your story for kind of believing in the crypto framework of things?
I think it's because in general, I did come to the realization early that if you're going to be a successful band or a successful creative project, or artist whatsoever, you've got to have a good business plan. And really just knowing what to do with your money when you get it is important. So I saw crypto as a way of taking out the middleman. That's like really the thesis behind a lot of it with music distribution, with finances. Cut out the middleman, let the artists do a lot more on their own, and let them collaborate with people without having that third party constantly taking a huge cut that makes it not worth working with other people.
Absolutely. And with the sort of innovation that music NFTs and these are just coming into the picture, we have a viable opportunity for music to come in and really make a living for the passionate things that they care about. Even one of the projects that I'm passionate about, it's called Swaraj Project, which essentially is a music NFT project based out of India. And they have around 20 emerging artists just syndicated with their platform. And my God, Anthony, the sort of music that's coming out of that, it's epic. It's like the sort of labels that promote these mainstream artists, it's just so mainstream.
Right.
But the sort of vibes they have is beautiful. And that's the sort of creativity that music NFTs allow for. And the sort of work that you've done also, I see why crypto allows for that sort of emerging creativity to happen.
Yep.
What about you, Michael? What's your story? How did you get into crypto?
Yeah, so it wasn't even NFT inspired. I fell into the NFT tunnel here mid 2021. So for me, it was crypto based initially. I got into the 2017 Bitcoin bull run right before it really went wild. And I was just a simple Coinbase user, but I'd had a friend who'd been preaching since 2015. And I finally decided to make the leap in October 2017. The timing was nice. So obviously, I knew I was the world's smartest man because I had found the golden goose. And so
That is
I
all of
was
us, actually.
exactly. And so I found it. I nailed it. I was there. So that was fine and dandy. And then obviously the return came and everything fell apart. And this was my first bull market. And so I hadn't experienced what became known as crypto winter. And I hadn't had any kind of bear training or anything like that. So the one thing I would rewrite is my lack of awareness through the crypto winter of 2018 to 2020 proper. I didn't pay attention to anything. And then in early 2021, January, my wife and I actually thought we were going to buy a piece of land here in the mountains nearby. And I remembered that I still had some Bitcoin and ETH stored in my Coinbase, I think somewhere, somehow, right? And so I went and cracked open the piggy bank, and then the purchase fell through. So I had cracked my crypto bank and I knew that I wanted to reinvest it, but not in the exact same positions. And so I got very lucky because that was February of 2021, and we discovered the launch of Polygon Network. And so I
Wow.
jumped right on Polygon. I had been on ETH for maybe 4 transactions, seen those $50 gas fees or whatnot, knew that
My
it was
God,
something.
killer. It was
Oh, it was something valuable, something very valuable that I had found with what looked like what was called DeFi summer of 2020. So I knew something special had happened. And then when I found Polygon and I realized I could transact for less than a penny, all hell broke loose. That suddenly I went crazy. And so I've just been exploring every corner of the crypto scene that I could via Polygon since February 2021. I haven't stopped yet. And so for me, that eventually became, now Aavegotchi fell into the mix here and we'll get there. But for me, the overarching path has been in November 21, I finally was able to quit full-time in real life work and find a job in Web3. And then as that progressed, I am now like an official Web3 employee. So it's no longer just trying to chase bags. I'm not trying to just invest in moon coins and try to catch that. I've burnt out as a trader and become what I'll consider now like a full-time builder.
Oh, fantastic, man. I'm surprised that you're even working. A Polygon was evangelizing out of my backyard, and I wish I had put my life savings in it. And, and
That's like a
you
regret
sitting.
everybody has in Indian Web3.
Man, they were right there evangelizing it. We should have gotten in the game, and you sitting all the way in Florida, you just kind of did a baller game, just investing in it, believing in that whole thing. Same like you,
Yeah.
2018 to 2020, I got screwed myself also, so I empathize with you there.
Abhishek, why don't you take a minute and introduce No Future for joining in?
Oh, New Futuristic is in the game. Oh,
Yep.
fantastic. Oh, no.
Welcome.
What's up, buddy? How have you been? We were just kind of discussing Anthony and Cale's origin stories from a game's perspective. What is your story, buddy?
Hopefully you can hear me. I had to move from my laptop to my studio where I actually have Zoom on it. So I was like, all right, let's just go all the way.
Much better.
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect, man. Just
I'm doing well. I got into crypto in 2020, like during DeFi summer, as Mycaleum said. Right when it was starting, I had gotten into ETH Lend before it became Aave. And I was like trading like a madman. And I want to say Mycaleum's 2017, 2018. I had the mini little bear market, but like in DeFi summer between, I guess like end of August until maybe like November, where the market just dipped really hard. And then it came back really strong. I traded and just played around in crypto until April, like March and April, when I thought, oh shit, we're at a market top. This doesn't make sense, these valuations. So I cashed most of everything out at the top. And then I started investing in NFTs. I bought a Bored Ape Yacht Club 1 month after they minted, and then my Aavegotchi. And then I just became a full-fledged NFT degen. So I've been doing that pretty much full-time for the last year and a half. And then now I'm like Mycaleum. I just actually got hired. I'm working as the partnership lead for Orium Network. So I'm helping create partnerships, looking for partnerships with guilds and other games because they're creating a rental system that's going to be cross-game, cross-platforms. It's going to be really exciting. So that's my backstory. I'm a rapper, a photographer. I make content for Aavegotchi pretty much every day. And I'm a degen. Like I explained to people in the real world, I'm a fancy 10-year-old. That's what I am. I'm a really fancy 10-year-old.
My God, man. You sold the top, you bought Bored Apes a month after minting. Why are you in this business, man? You should be a financial analyst or something by now, man. And also by looking in the room right now, I feel like I'm the least, probably the guy with the biggest mouth. In that regard, amazing that it had this sort of amazing backstory and you run partnerships also in this Web3 world. All of you, you had your stint with crypto and you had this motivation to contribute to something bigger than yourselves, a passion project. And this kind of sets up the question, now that all of you, Anthony was into music NFTs, Cale also did very well with Polygon, and you did quite well for yourself. Are you, by the way, any of those anon accounts that does quite well in NFT, by the way, no futuristic? Yeah, but so with this setup, how did you guys find the promised land, that is the Gotchiverse? How did you stumble your way on it? Anybody could just go in and talk about what Aavegotchi as a game is all about for all our
I
listeners.
think No Future probably found it before the two of us. Is that fair to say, Anthony?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so let's
Found
go
it.
in like sequence of chronology here, right? So No Future, because my origin story involves No Futuristic, quite honestly, and so I'd like to start as early as it gets.
Go for it. No
Oh
future.
yeah.
Yeah. During DeFi Summer 2020, I remember seeing, I think it was like on CoinDesk, one of those like crypto publications, Aavegotchi, because I've been looking into DeFi and I was interested in Aave, and I had heard the rumblings of Aavegotchi, this like decentralized finance game kind of thing. And I was like, oh, this is cool. But it was on Ethereum mainnet at that point. And in that run up to the end of the year, gas fees got crazy. So I was like, I'm just leaving this alone. I'm not even going to pay, like, even regular DeFi, I stopped messing with it. I just would leave my money because I was like, I'm not going to pay $300 to get back 40. It's just stupid. So I left it on the back burner. And then when at the top in 2021, I was like, once I cashed out all that crypto to like USD coin, I was like, I want to go into something else. And I had been hearing about NFTs, and I saw the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and I just kind of picked it up off of like a whim. But I found Aavegotchi again. I was looking at some crypto publications and I saw it, and I knew that now it was on Polygon, so the fees weren't as high. Although Polygon was really intimidating at this point because there wasn't a lot of information. Like, I make a lot of content onboarding people. There wasn't a lot of that at the beginning. So it was like, oh crap, there's a whole new network and I have to bridge, and what the hell is bridging and all this extra stuff. And I jumped in and I got my first Gotchi. It was going really well. Season 1, rarity farming. The big market dip happened near the end of it, so I was able to buy extra Gotchis. But then I became an ambassador. They opened a V2 of the ambassadors program where you can host a group or like a Facebook page. Everybody was mostly doing Discord channels, Telegram, stuff like that. So I actually set up a Facebook page, and then Facebook locked me out of my account. So I was like, damn. So I was like, I don't have any other choice. I have to make a YouTube channel. And that's where it started. I just started, they would give us XP and USDC every month for making content, like a little USDC. So just making more and more content and going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And that's what I've done, I guess, over the last, I don't even know how long it's been, like a year and a half almost at this point, just making content.
Oh,
Yes,
phenomenal. Start getting the whole content game down for them. Pretty cool, man. And Cale, we're going with.
And like you even mentioned too, you'll see like No Future's background and Anthony background here, both with the guitars and everything. These guys are really true artists. They really are creators at heart. And that's not the same origin story I have. I like building. I was in band in high school. I like that stuff, but I don't self-identify with it in that strong of a way. And at least on Polygon wise, I saw the arrival of the Ghost token onto Polygon Network. It was one of the earliest tokens to hit Polygon bridging from ETH. And I still currently hold my Frax Ghost LP on DeFi. It was one of the very first LPs that I ever opened up, and still holding strong on that. So I was looking at it from the DeFi point of things, looked at the cost of these gotchis and totally blew it off, totally sidestepped it and said, no way, this is crazy. What are people doing? This makes no sense. And so I didn't experience Haunt 1. I didn't pay attention for a long time. And then somewhere along the path, the NFT bug just the call becomes loud. And so about summer of 2021, I entered the NFT scene. And even my friends at that time still thought I was off the deep end. You've lost it. You've lost it, Cale. Now you're buying crows. You're buying goat. What are you doing? And so I started doing stuff like that to at least explore the space. And by exploring this space, you inevitably run into the content creators that are leading at the front edge. And that at that time was No Futuristic, Gotchi Content Creator, 3D Slaps. There's very limited amount of YouTube channels of people making consistent content on this stuff. And quite honestly, that is where I got hooked, because as you've mentioned, I saw that same level of commitment and enthusiasm from these guys and was like, I don't know the full project, but it's like converting people to spend consistent amounts of time talking about it. And so maybe there's something here, and I'm a big believer in culture. And so I saw that there was potential culture hook there and started touching on it. And so my brother actually, and I still have it right here with me, right? My brother was the one that decided that we should start the Gotchi Brothers, because he was looking around, was like, you know what? No one's doing a dedicated podcast, like just straight to podcasting. Maybe we could fit into a gap here. And we didn't think we were even relevant enough in the space to have a voice. And it was so inspiring to be picked up by people like NoFuturistic, Hefe, Dr. Wagme, Bearded Lady, the true OGs of the space. Were happy to participate in our programming, happy to contribute, happy to champion what we were working on. And it converted me 100%, and I haven't stopped yet.
Oh, fantastic. You cared so much about the project that you started your own podcast. That's the beauty of the DAO. As long as they see initiative, they are ready to support you that way. You don't see that in the traditional world to that extent, And so happy to see that the whole space kind of converged and just made this possible. And the Gotchi brothers thing looks cute, by the way.
Yeah, very similar. So when I first came in, like I said, I was in for NFTs, but I actually did not understand it in the sense of I didn't understand why people would buy NFTs. I understood why I, as an artist, wanted to make them, but why would people buy NFTs? It didn't make sense. So I instantly went into DeFi. Like I started using Aave. And I jumped on Polygon really early, and I was just really, okay, DeFi makes sense to me. Crypto makes sense to me. NFTs doesn't make sense yet. I see where it's going, but I don't get it. So I started diving into all of that stuff and then ran into Aavegotchi a few times when it was still on layer one. It was just, yeah, I'm not going to buy this on layer one, but I see this utility NFT thing as something that makes a lot of sense. And then when Haunt 2 came out, I was like, all right, it's on Polygon. I'm very familiar here. I was making a lot of Polygon DeFi content at the time. So I was like, all right, I'm going to make some Aavegotchi content jumping into Haunt 2. And I just started making videos about my experience with the GBM. And when I did that, I like immediately ran into 3D Slaps on YouTube, and I jumped into Friend Zone, met NoFuturistic and Hefe. And I was like, I think the first Friend Zone meeting was like 4 or 5 people, and I was amongst them. And I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? This is a cool little group. And it just grew from there. And it was just all about the culture and the music. I saw everybody making art. And then when GMI formed, I was like, all right, well, this is where like Aavegotchi music goes, right? And I like dropped an album in there. I was just like, hey, look at this music, y'all. But yeah, it was DeFi and Aave that brought me in, because it was like, wait, this seems very like, this makes sense. If Aave partners with this NFT thing, it must be something. And then I get there and all the people are artists and cool people. And I'm like, okay, this is a vibe. This is like something I can get down with. So
yeah, first of all, I'm surprised, that you had such a baller vibe in the friend zone. Most people try to get away from it. And pretty neat story also. What connected you with DeFi, and it's brought both NoFuturistic and you into the game as well. But for the people who don't know what Aavegotchi is all about, could you just walk them through what the game is all about and what it was at the time when you all entered into it? Who wants to go first?
Let NoFuturistic take it.
I'll go first for chronological reasons, but yeah, when I first, okay, so what Aavegotchi is, it's Aavegotchi, it's like the protocol and then the Gotchiverse. Those two things are separate as like they kind of, as we evolved, it's two separate things. Aavegotchi are digital friends or little ERC 721 ghosts that take Spirit Force, which are 8 tokens from Aave. So like interest bearing collateral tokens that you put inside your Gotchi, they just continue to earn interest. And basically they have different like rarities. Basically when they're minted, like you have a portal that you open, and when you open and summon the portal, there'll be 10 gotchis in there, and it's random. Their stats, there's 6 traits per gotchi. 2 are immutable, the eyes, the eye and eye color. The rest can be moved or altered. So when you open this portal, you get these 10 gotchis. You choose one, the other 9 disappear. You have to summon it by putting in Spirit Force, which is the 8 token, and then you have your Aavegotchi. When I entered the game, that was it. You had the Aavegotchi and you pet it. We have something called rarity farming, which is we just completed the 4th season of, which is basically like a leaderboard contest based on the rarity of your Aavegotchi, if you dress it up, which I'll get into in a second. The kinship, which is petting your Gotchi. You're supposed to pet your Gotchi twice a day. And then the XP for your Gotchi, which you can earn from voting in the DAO. We've incentivized voting in our DAO so that we always meet quorum essentially. And for activities in mini games, for attending events such as special parties that Pixelcraft or Aavegotchi throw. So at that point, that's all there was. Like, it was just petting and hoping for XP with mini games. Season 1, simple. Now at this point, we have the Gotchiverse, which is separate from the Aavegotchi protocol, which is an ORPG game. It's basically set up as a farming game. I'm actually playing it right now because I have the channel. Each Gotchi gets a universal basic income. If you have land that you can go to, you can channel once a day, and you get that UBI and ERC 20 tokens, which are Alchemica. There's 4 of them, plus another glitter token. There's a lot of tokenomics here. At this point, it's a farming game, but we're now about to go into a secondary phase of the social phase, which is the art release, where we're going to have NFT displays that you can throw onto your parcels, as well as buildings, installations, and eventual PvP. So in the coming weeks, I think it's in the coming weeks, we're supposed to be having the fake Gotchi release, which I'm going to say, I feel like GMI has had such a large part in becoming an accelerator for the art renaissance in the Gotchiverse. Because at the beginning, it was just a few of us, and then it's like this teaming effort, and now artist summits and guild summits, things are accelerating because of GMI. So I would like to think that fake Gotchis is like I don't want to say a direct product of it, but like we've definitely influenced and shown how art can be important in the Gotchiverse. So now it's evolved to this bigger thing that's just beyond just the Aavegotchi protocol and the game itself, at least in my mind.
No, I think that's really well said. For me, what I'm seeing Aavegotchi do is it's like this word's thrown around a lot, but it's very much a metaverse type experience. There's going to be portions of the game that appeal to different individuals. You can participate across the spectrum. You can focus on specific sectors of it. You can be just a collector of high quality, high rarity NFTs and be an NFT trader within the ecosystem. You can go inside I was in the Gotchiverse the other day with my mom, walking around, chatting in chat bubbles. It can be a very tangible social experience. It can be a financial experience. It has a whole plethora. And I think, as the future is saying, we quite honestly probably have helped crack this code of recognizing that it can be so much more, that it doesn't have to limit itself to just having quests with your game characters and go do the quest and get the loot. There's so much more to be talked about along that path and journey.
Yeah, I would just add a little on that to say that, like, what we're showing with GMI and as individuals is that, so the Aavegotchi DAO has the snapshot, and it's one of the most active DAOs on chain. And that is how you can influence the course of what's going to happen. And this game is very much in a beta mode where there's many features that haven't launched yet, and we're going to have a say in how those things look. But everybody in this room is also having a say in how these things look, because we go on YouTube and talk about it every night, and we throw events and we get people behind movements that do end up influencing the overall ecosystem without a snapshot, without writing a proposal. You just make the culture as you're going.
No, I think that's fantastic. Just the way games have evolved, it's indirect form of a touch that you see between the gamers and the company itself. But here, what with Aavegotchi is the community is having a say right to the way the game's also fashioned out, and how the entire marketing, the entire product life cycle, the community has a say. The thing is, you take a look at major studios like Rockstar Studios and things like that, they care about every detail. They don't, even though they love to get the feedback and all these things, in the end, it's their creative vision that they want to express, and they don't want that sort of control to come in and seep in. And the sort of openness with which Aavegotchi has carried it forward here, it's awesome to see. But then this whole transition to a DAO, it is not something that happened from the start. It's something that kind of came with time and with a lot of back and forth with the community. Could you guys walk us through what kind of was the starting point for that? And how did you guys convert from what was a normal crypto game to something that DAOified itself? What was the story behind that?
Yeah, go ahead. No future, but I just want to give major shout to no code. Like, it's all Coder Dan.
Yeah, 100%. When I got in, the DAO was already pretty much created and voting. But the one issue it faced was like voter apathy, as so many DAOs that issue they do face. So at that point when I was in there, the DAO had already been, they were voting when it was on ETH mainnet. I wasn't in there at that point, but I know there's stages to the DAO. Like, I think we're in the cocoon stage, and it's supposed to evolve to a much more active DAO. So like today, as an example, Aavegotchi hosted a live stream on YouTube with D-Work, because we were looking at some of their DAO tooling services so that we can make our DAO more efficient to take more control of the process. And I will say DAOs are great, but we do get in the way. Like you were mentioning Rockstar, right? We recently, not recently, but there was a vote not too long ago where the DAO was like, Pixelcraft, we don't want you to make NFTs and dilute our assets anymore. So your whole roadmap, you have to pause that part of it. We're not going to allow you to sell land for now until we say so. So that's great that we have that control. We can get in the way of the creator's vision to a degree, but that's why it's so good to have such open transparency with Coder Dan, like Mycaleum had said, Jesse, and the whole team, because they want this to be run by the DAO. They're not trying to control it. They really want to have the DAO become its own strong standing thing. And we're getting there. We were talking about more DAO toolings. And last week during our DAO meeting, we had prominent community members, Dr. Wagme and Mikey J, come up, and they're proposing a DAO structure or organization where we'd have like almost an executive committee that could be broken down into different levels. And then say stuff like content creation. Instead of us trying to like ambiguously work on it, the DAO can have a committee that can set up bounties for content creation, and we can just expand from there. So the DAO has evolved a lot from the initial days that I saw, but I wasn't there at the very beginning, so I don't know what the true transition from PC to DAO was. I guess it would have happened after the when a treasury would have been available, right? Like after the first Haunt 1 mint or something.
As far as I know, it's as soon as the Ghost token was live, the Ghost token was instant credit of voting power, and they've made it quite known that they were essentially a DAO since day one. And so as soon as they had a token availability, they could already allocate voting power. Whether or not they were using Snapshot effectively or having proposals that mattered or had traction, it was maybe the early stages where the growth was needed. But they definitely are proud to claim that they've launched as DAO since day one. And so all they've done now is cultivate like useful interest and relevant proposals.
Yeah, I would say it's probably like any DAO. In the beginning, you're going to say, especially when you come out of an LLC or any kind of a corporation or entity, like you're going to say, hey, we have a DAO. And then it's going to be a matter of time before someone steps up and says, okay, I will take responsibility for things. And then you get more and more people stepping up to do that. And I think that's what we've seen with GMI. Like, we're not really a DAO or a guild so much. We were just like, hey, we're a collective of content creators. We're going to get together and have a vision of helping each other out. And then more and more structure pops out as people step up and take responsibilities and say, hey, oh, I want to throw a summit. And then a bunch of people back that person up and say, all right, we'll help you throw a summit. And
we'll jump in a little bit ahead here maybe, but just talking about that, why the GMI formed kind of late 2021. And we talked about the vision early on, and it was very much like a loosely associated co-op of creators. It wasn't meant to be like a distributed token with specific voting powers and whatnot. It was really more of a support group for the Pixelcraft team. And like we mentioned, Pixelcraft and Rockstar, both of those operations want one thing, which is our dollars. I had just loved the respect from Pixelcraft to say, how should I best entice your dollars? I just loved the honesty of saying, what can we do to make you happy, quite honestly. And so with GMI, we very specifically chose to not try to pursue being what's known as a task force. Within the Aavegotchi DAO structure, they have many task forces, the DAO Treasury Task Force, Wearables Task Force, Arcade Task Force. And these are very closely controlled entities within the Aavegotchi DAO structure that need Aavegotchi DAO approval to mobilize. And we very cleverly, in my opinion, very cleverly chose to be as close to the Aavegotchi DAO as possible without being underneath that umbrella. Because at the end of the day, we don't need their permission either for anything. We can do whatever we want within GMI to help support the project in the way that we see best fitting it without being restricted within the DAO structure itself.
So how did this, that's fascinating. You're a sub-DAO without the umbrella of Pixelcraft Studios also. And you have all these task forces that was transitioned in with the community. Could you just walk us through? I know that the structure is overarching, but at least some of the main guilds that constitute the DAO and how they function currently?
Yeah, so at least for me, it's the Aavegotchi DAO is the umbrella, and then Pixelcraft Studios is the LLC that's not above it, but more parallel to the side of it. And it's like a lateral tier. And then below the Aavegotchi DAO right now, there's only 3 task forces, one of which is highly effective. That's the DAO Treasury Task Force, the Wearables Task Force, and the Arcade Task Force. They've all been inspired from the right concepts where the community recognized that the game needed some focused committee type attention in these areas to provide the best intentions and progress proposals. But the DAO Treasury Task Force has been the one that's done the most, and it's because they're the ones that have been empowered with actual funding. And so since they're the ones that hold the bag, they can find projects and choose to fund them via grants or proposals or supports, reimbursements. Whereas the other two task forces are really more of like a brainstorming and advisory committee. And so they don't have as much teeth underneath them, so to be said. And we have found, at least within, and so that's the initial Aavegotchi DAO structure. And what we envisioned with GMI, everything's nodes and networks. And so we wanted to create something that was relevant, but separate, to give Aavegotchi DAO an opportunity to expand in a meaningful way. Because I personally didn't want to see it just be a whole slew of all these task forces operating right within the Aavegotchi DAO structure. We see currently GMI and Aavegotchi DAO as partner guilds almost. We don't work for the Aavegotchi DAO, we work with the Aavegotchi DAO. And that's what's uniquely separate from the task forces themselves.
Well, fantastic. You don't work like under it, but it just came because of a pure initiative that way. And you have all these task forces that constitute the Aavegotchi DAO, and GMI is like a partner that way. That's inspiring. But the thing, what really excites me here is you have, I mean, you bunch of people, you just cared about the game. You have these cheerleaders who come in and they care so much about the game, they're willing to do things for it. Here, you are actually getting your hands dirty by, even though you're not working for it, you're like a partner and you're getting into the whole game mechanics of it. You're getting into all these things that would be done by a traditional game company. You're getting into all these things. What was something that was dominated by trad companies are now being taken over by the gamers, by the fans, in terms of doing real hard work. That takes a lot of passion, that takes a lot of, there's so much there. Why is Aavegotchi able to inspire that, and how can other games replicate that? What do you see in Aavegotchi that other games don't, and where can they learn from you guys?
I'd like to say it's Coder Dan and Jesse. The big thing for me is this team is not anonymous. I know who these guys are. They have a track record, and they are mother-loving shippers. They just ship all the time. That's just what they do. They like any project. The goal should be to under promise and over deliver, and they consistently do that. When they had the Gotchiverse light paper come out, I had no idea the depth that it was going to go into. I really thought it was going to be much simpler. And then, whoa, we got farming and all this other stuff. And it keeps evolving. They constantly do this. And we laugh about it usually during District 420 on Fridays, because Fridays is their shipping day, I believe, for the Gotchiverse. So we'll be in like the Gotchiverse, smoking weed, talking about our District 420 stuff. And all of a sudden a new feature pops up that they haven't announced, that they have not said anything about, but it's just available in the Gotchiverse, a new bug fix or something. And they're just constantly doing that. So it's like the ethos of the founder. I have a video on my YouTube about this, like talking about Coder Dan. Like that man is a workaholic. He like is getting chafed from sitting on a saddle chair too much, working on coding. Like that man he's a maniac. You need those kind of people to run the project, that kind of passion, because it filters down to people like me. Like I'm very easily excitable. When I see someone that's so passionate about something, it's easy to like instill that passion in me, especially for things I care about. And I think that I think this team is always like forward looking and constantly just kicking ass and shipping. So if your team does that, if it's a non-anon team, I don't think it's a deal breaker if it is an anonymous team, but there is a level of risk involved there. So having a team that's doxxed does help with the history, and the Aavegotchi team continues to grow more, and they've avoided VCs. Like, so that's a big thing for me too, because it's like, I'm a Cool Cats owner. Today, Animoca Brands announced that they are investing like seed funding or whatever into Cool Cats, like to help them with their game. To me, I posted about that and I was like, nice, let's pump my bags, because I'm going to sell as soon as it pumps. Because I don't really have any conviction for them, not at all. Where with Aavegotchi, I continue, even a bear market, I continue to accumulate assets. I have 90 pieces of land. I'm up to 20 gotchis. I have lots of tickets, lots of wearables. And as I just will keep accumulating, because this is supposed to be a 30-year game. They set up Alchemica contracts or investing smart contracts that will continue to pay out. So the money for that vesting contract was made during our first GBM auctions for land. So we'll add more money as we do more auctions, but that vesting contract for 30 years is there. That makes me feel incredibly safe. I can sit here and just play the game, see what happens. I don't know if I could do that with the Cool Cats. I got to think about if I have to sell it, what's happening to milk prices. I don't think about Alchemica prices. Like glitter is cheap right now, but I'm going to be a billionaire because of glitter one day, because it's a limited supply. So there's all these things and this depth of thought that the team has put into this. Like there's not often that I sit in a room and I feel like I'm not the smartest person in the room. And in this room, I feel dumb as shit. So it's like, this is the right room. This is where I need to be.
Nah, I can easily echo on that sentiment there too. They do both, right? They provide the culture and the hype, but they also back it up with the tech. They show you how it's gonna work. Early on, I started getting good about stalking on GitHub and checking those GitHub workboards. And Coder Dan, and I've done comparables. I've checked against projects that I respect, and Coder Dan's output on his contribution board is unparalleled. It's significant. He really, truly, like, you think we're obsessive at GMI about just evangelizing for Aavegotchi, but these guys set the tone. We're following in their footsteps. And so that level of true contribution and enthusiasm, and the Saturday Hangout, right? We've all been at the Saturday Hangouts for a long time, but this is one of the most consistent, long-running access to the founders of any project that I've seen. And it's not just lighthearted access, it's authentic access. We've had good hangouts, we've had bad hangouts, we've had personal hangouts, we've had all of it. And we are a actual community. I know these people's names, and when new people show up, we enjoy embracing them and showing them why it's just different here. And I think that difference is like authentic community that started from the very top down.
Yeah, I would say, just from my experience, that's the same thing. When I went into Friend Zone and made friends with the No Future and Hefe and Slaps, and then I went to the main Aavegotchi call and was still like, I'm not going to be welcome here. I don't know any of these people. But then I was, and it was just like, I walked into this community and the devs, the leads on the team are like, oh, hey, how's it going, Anthony? You're a person here. And that meant a lot. And I would say that it goes, stepping back to your previous question, I can build into this, because the guilds, being like the wearable guilds and the other gaming guilds that are in this community, aren't here just because, oh, play to earn, we're going to have a guild and we're going to make a bunch of money. It's like Pixelcraft built in this idea of the wearable guilds, and we want you to start communities. We want you to have groups of friends, and we want you to have friendly competition between other people in our friendly community. So it's built right there into the game and the ethos to be a community and have this kind of level of interaction. And then I would just say it's also the easy meme of the ghost. The ghost is so powerful to just be able to take and run with it for art and memes and culture. It's like all of those things combined is a good NFT project and a good game.
That's what it's all about. Boils down to, in the end, the game should be amazing to play and everything else will just fall into place. And it's amazing, the way Jesse and Dan don't see you as NPCs. That's the beauty of the Web3 space. A lot of games, they in the heat of making money, they just oversee a lot of what the fans expect. And sometimes certain people because there's a lot of connect. Gabe from Steam, there's a lot of good creators out there that connect, but there are a lot that don't. And that you tend to see. And the sort of interactions that Aavegotchi allows for that sort of community is allowed that community to retain themselves in spite of the bear market. They've been around since quite a long time. And with that regard, I want to get to the GMI and the sort of work that you guys do. You mentioned that you're a content creators and general collective since last year? And you've been bringing up these summits and things like that. Could you get into the brief of what more does it do, and what are the sort of work that you've done, the sort of summits you've built, and how people can actually contribute to this?
Man, that was a long time ago we had that conversation, No Future. That was maybe September, maybe early November of 2021. My brother and I had already done the Gotchiverse thing, and it was getting traction and we were into it. And for me, a team builder, I like building teams. I like being parts of operations, and I've been a manager in a lot of my professional life. And so I like putting groups together. I'm a maximizer, is my Clifton strength. And so I saw this opportunity to aggregate this amazing fragmented talent pool that was living right in front of us within the Aavegotchi community. You had people like No Future and 3D Slaps and Hef. And so for me, it was really inspired just as a media guild. We were very specific to like content creation, YouTube videos, podcasts. It has now expanded to also, I'm very excited here lately because we're starting to see a lot of coders and developers now within GMI. And it's been interesting for us to reflect on the fact that also is content creation. And Anthony has been really good about describing what media is and what creation is and how GMI can be this catch-all for all of these individuals. But it started with very humble roots of just trying to get on the same point with the messaging, because everyone almost doing a lot of double work. You're making videos that are covering things that someone else just released, and you're stepping on each other's toes. And it felt like it might have been more useful if we could coordinate and focus our energy and our time, so that way we were coming out with a more consistent message and playing to each person's best strengths is how things got going.
Anthony.
I can keep going, but yeah, I'm not sure.
No, I thought I'd let NoFuturistic take it first. I was the last joining member.
I was going to let you guys you specifically, because you and Hefe organized the Artist Summit and the Guild Summit, which I watched, but I didn't actually help organize whatsoever. And that was a big undertaking and a huge step away from what GMI was doing at that point. At that point, we were hosting podcasts. We put out the One Hit Wonder. That was the first NFT that we dropped for 420, first music NFT in the Gotchiverse, I believe. And then from there, we pivoted towards these big social events, and the Guild Summit was a huge success. The Artist Summit was a huge success. We had the first Aavegotchi art auction, which was a huge success. But it's probably you're better to talk about those things.
Yeah. So I came into GMI just because I saw it was content creators, but it was media in general. And that's an interesting term to me. As Mycaleum said, like when devs started coming to us, I was like, code is art. Code is writing. It is a whole nother ball game, but it is a medium and it is media. So we should be taking all of this under our umbrella. And I think when I first came into GMI, it was basically like I had written this Aavegotchi album and I was like, wanted to get some ears on it from people that would care. And that started off as a good way to just get in there. And then it was like, there was a lot of like loose organization. And I have a good bit of experience in DAOs now, because that's like instantly when I came into crypto, I was like getting into DAOs as soon as I could. I was part of the Polygon Advocates. I still am part of Polygon Advocates and Polygon DAO in the very beginning. Bankless DAO. And then when I came into GMI, it was very much like me and Hefe started to get into these conversations about structure and getting more organization and getting it like, what can we do to really make more of an impact within our server, but then also Aavegotchi in general. And the Guild Summit was something that Hefe popped out with. And I was like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. And we started building upon it. At that point, I also brought in my friend Zfi, who does the From A to Z podcast with me. And Zfi is very good with Notion and organizing and all these things. And he jumped in and was like able to help us really keep track of our thoughts, because even Hefe, he's got great ideas, but we are both poor organizers. So having someone else there like Mycaleum and Zfi to like wrangle our cat brains into a usable content. And it was great because Hefe is an awesome host. He can take the stage. I back him up with the AV and co-hosting, and Mycaleum as well with co-hosting. And we just really went into that Guild Summit not knowing what we were going to do. We just kind of had a loose schedule and we're like, we're going to make this happen. And the community like is so powerful that they just egged us on, and it made us feel good about everything we were doing. So we don't have any fear about organizing an event and knowing that we're going to get the support from the community, but also from Pixelcraft, because we didn't know we would get that kind of support from Pixelcraft or the DAO. We just were like, hey, we're going to do a thing, and jumped behind us like full force. And we're like, yep, they're doing a thing, and like helped us any way we needed.
Enthusiasm, encouragement, and organization. Those are recipes for success right there. And as anyone in Web3 knows, founders are busy. Dev teams are busy. Everyone is busy. No one has enough free time. And so the extra support that GMI was able to provide in terms of awareness and marketing of the Aavegotchi ecosystem was welcomed with perfect attention from Pixelcraft Studios, as you're saying. And GMI is proud to have been one of the very first projects that was funded with that DAO Treasury Task Force. And we didn't have to go to them to ask for funding. They came to us and said, we need to fund you guys. Y'all need to be rewarded for this effort because this is significant. No one is doing this, not even just in Aavegotchi, but anywhere. There aren't communities that are assembling themselves and putting on significant community events that are bringing in over 100 participants and inspiring new people to pay attention to it and reinvigorating the existing community base to continue to push. And Hefe, bless his heart, he is our idea generator here. The Guild Summit was in his brain. The Artist Summit was in his brain. And then major shout out to Z5, because what we benefited from in a big way from him was a very professional level of organization. And he created GMI's first ever front-facing public page. Our home page that is now our base of operations and where we keep up with everything. And the Discord between Thrax, now also a proud Pixelcraft employee standard member, helped us build the Discord initially and is still very involved with what we're doing. And so we're just lucky, quite honestly. We found the right group of people with the right sense of commitment and a diverse set of skills. And when these powers combine, great things are happening.
It's fascinating that you came together as a pool of minds working to evangelize this thing. Initially, it didn't come under the umbrella, but you guys did such a fantastic work getting in like hundreds of people to come in and be a part of these summits that they wanted you to be a closely associated partner that way. When you do get your hands dirty that way, and when you see that sort of stories come out of inspiring people to delve deeper into the Aavegotchi ecosystem, it just kind of fills your heart that way. The artist summit was something I've seen a lot of those art come out, and when you are catalyst for that sort of creativity, it just goes a long way. Could uh, some of you just share some of those nice stories from these contributors where it made you think, wow, you just inspired something beautiful here? What is the sort of art, or what is the sort of stories you kind of saw? One example that I can give you, because I was following the Discord during the summit, was when I think Dr. Wagmi was giving out a speech and he was doing it from the hospital and something had gone down. That's the level of commitment that you guys go through to ensure that this thing has to come through. It's crazy. And what were the sort of stories you saw from your community?
Yeah, and I'll go on a little rant here on this one. Two people that come to my mind right off the top of my head, we'll talk about three, is Lev, OXZ-Fi, and Manor. And we have plenty of other people that fit into this category, but Manor specifically is near. Yeah, Rigo. Oh my gosh, what an origin story with Rigo. Rigo was a friend of mine from another community of crypto coliseums, and I just was also another player to our game and interesting. And I told him, hey man, like there's something special going on over here. And he came in and cracked the code and started making a little bit of art. And there's something special that happens. And this is what I actually enjoy so much, right? I'm growing into a creator of my own rights in terms of content, but I've always considered myself more of a curator than a creator. And there's something really, really amazing that happens between the artists and the consumer relationship when you can patronize somebody's work and you can see that it makes that real significant difference in their heart to go, holy crap, someone thinks that I'm useful. Someone thinks that I'm good. Someone thinks that this is worthwhile. That is such an inspiration that happens inside the artist. And you can see it in their eyes. You can see it in their enthusiasm. You can see it in their second work because they go, oh shit, I'm going to go do this again. This is, oh my gosh. And so the Artist Summit was prime example because we had ended up with 62 pieces, I believe, in that auction setup. And maybe half of the contributing artists didn't contribute until maybe a few hours before the auction. They all didn't think they were good enough. None of them thought they were worthy. None of them thought, not me, I can't be someone that participates in this stuff, as though you need someone's permission or some kind of qualifier to participate. And I think that at GMI, that's one of my personal missions, is to try to inspire everybody to produce something, just anything. Give me a napkin drawing and I will buy it. Just take a shot and be understanding that there are people out here such as us at GMI that are ready to put you on our shoulders and carry you through town square. Like, we are not here to critique. We are not here to break down. We are not here to barrier. We are here to inspire, encourage, and get people involved, because we don't know where the next Picasso is. We don't know where the next Vitalik is. We don't know where the next source of true talent may be hiding amongst our ranks. And so the best thing you can do is pat someone on the back and tell them to give it their best.
What about you, Anthony? No Futuristic, you have stories of your own about this?
I think that one's probably the most powerful one to me, is just like the amount of people that we've seen step up. And I guess to build upon that, first it was artists, and now we've got devs. We got developers stepping up saying, hey, GMI, I think you can help us out. And that's really cool for, I guess, for a lot of us too, because we're artists and creatives and curators and team leaders and all these things. But like, to have devs approaching us saying, hey, you can help us, it's, whoa, everybody's trying to find a dev to work with, or like whatever. So I think it's cool that people just look at us and say, you're a group of people that can help us achieve more of what we're trying to do. And what everybody's trying to do is build upon Aavegotchi ecosystem and build something that works within these assets. And that's really, yeah, it's like the cool thing about Pixelcraft and Aavegotchi and GMI is that GMI exists because Pixelcraft has made this place where it's like, hey, build upon these things. This is an open API, basically. Like you can make your own Aavegotchi game with the Aavegotchi assets, and that can influence the ecosystem just as much as the main game. And so I think it's really cool to see, yeah, GMI just like empowering more and more people, because Pixelcraft saying it's the same thing, like I said, with forming a DAO. Pixelcraft says, all right, we want to form a DAO. It takes somebody like Dr. Wagme and Hefe and different people to step up and make that DAO function before you have a DAO. And it's the same thing with kind of this dispersing of the use of assets. It's now that you've got GMI saying, hey, we just do what we want over here, we're giving more people the power to say, oh yeah, we want to do what we want as well. So they feel like less like they're asking Pixelcraft's permission because they're like hanging out with GMI.
I find that power, as you rightly mentioned, what Cale and you said, it was really powerful that way. Most, I think 99% of people, I think even you, Anthony, even me for that matter, when we come into these communities, we just don't know what to do. There are so many people who know so much, and the sort of opportunity that you give these people, I'm really touched, that Kale, you mentioned that you don't want to judge people as long as people come in and just put in something to show that they care about the project. That itself is a contribution that goes a long way. And you, as GMI, what to say, the facilitators, you enable for that sort of passion to grow within the culture. I think this sort of space is what needs to come out across communities to ensure that people really stick through. It's a very simple thing. Just acknowledge that people, let people do their thing, should let them show their love, and it will stick for something that's greater than putting in those sort of incentives. You see the way the DAO world talks, it's like we have to align incentives, we have to give people money, and everything else will fall into place. But here, all you've done is just kind of ensure that, yes, let's make people feel valued, and no matter what they show, let's give them the space to contribute and become true like GMI apostles that way. Really amazing. With
It's a virtuous cycle. This is a very virtuous cycle, because I'll say shout out to this guy Soju. Hand-drawn animations that they load up, and they create an animation of me. There's been a couple of artists that have created art inspired by stuff I've done on a live stream or in a community call, and that blows my mind, because it's like I make this art, and whatever I do, I love doing it, but to see other people be inspired by the stuff I'm doing and that creates art, it's like a whole new hit of dopamine. So it's like impressive to see that we can do that, and there's no exchange of money. Like nothing's happening. The only thing that's happening, I guess, is prestige and esteem building, which is great. People need that in this world.
No Future's humble here and act because he's just a regular person. But like when at the Gotchi Brothers, when we reached out and said, would you give us a moment of your time? Would you potentially be a guest on our show? And he says yes and comes and does it. It inspires us. It encourages us to think, wow, like we have a shot. We can participate. We can do this stuff. And so I forget, maybe one of you two guys will remember who does the Scrabble boards on Linster, because they put out that GMI sponsored Scrabble board. Aavegotchi. And Aavegotchi did a GMI inspired Scrabble board art. And it was amazing to see our names on there, and just to know that what we do matters to other individuals. It puts responsibility on your shoulders, and it helps you keep up those energy levels. And just one more, because there's so many of these in the Gotchi gang now. We're talking about this. Kindness counts. In a trustless, permissionless world, kindness counts. And we've seen plenty of examples. No Future's been a part of some of these examples where community members get hacked or bad things happen, and people step up and say, hey, I ended up with your hot goods, and I heard what happened, and so this belongs to you. And they just hand over thousands of dollars of tangible assets because it's the right thing to do. And whilst there are still scammers in every community, and we get got when we get got, there are heroes in this community, and that's not true of every community. And so that's what keeps me hot. That's what keeps me inspired. And at Foreign Gotchi 15, Foreign showed up, and within 2 weeks had spun up very quickly into our culture and was very much a part of what we were doing, and ended up catching 2 NFTs that were distributed to her that were not, that was incorrect. It was only supposed to be 1. And we didn't even recognize it. They came straight to our doorstep and said, hey, I think you guys made a mistake. I have too many of these prizes. I need to turn this in. And this is it's just very touching, as you're mentioning, Abhishek, and it keeps me honest, and it keeps the integrity very high in our community. And that counts for a lot of the success that we're having inside of the Aavegotchi ecosystem on the whole, and within GMI as a specific operation.
I would just to point out, like, so with our raffles and everything, we basically have asked our community to send us money, and then they have had to wait up to 5-6 weeks sometimes to get their NFTs, and they're so understanding and patient with us. We almost do it like the Rare Pepe model, where it's send us your money and we'll mint them when we can. And we've just had problems with the contract and things like that, and nobody comes at us like, give me my money back, give me my, getting mad or anything. It's like super, yeah. Not one person comes back complaining. People would just be like, hey, I'll get it when I get it.
I find that you've made this sort of space where I think it's the nature of the Web3 space in general also in a bit, that people are collaborative and they allow for that sort of space to grow. And I think the sort of environment that Pixelcraft Studios and you guys have kind of created, in the end, you've shown that you've created this healthy environment where people can come in and contribute, and there need not be all these crazy deadlines and things like that, because you need a degree of trust, that sort of belief to keep the whole community going. And with that, I want to step back from GMI focusing on the community and setting its eyes. Your apostles, you need to convert the non-believers, right? What are your plans for converting the mainstream media to become true believers of the Gotchiverse? How do you plan to make that sort of content that vibes? Maybe what do you see can work with the mainstream? What are your thoughts on that? And yeah, what are your thoughts on working with influencers out there to make that sort of content that appeals? All these things.
I'll jump right in right there real quick, because there will be no external influencers at this party. We have our influencers. This is a homegrown operation. We don't need any additional strength. We just need to build our own muscles. No Future is growing and growing, and we're watching Anthony grow and grow. We're watching so many individuals grow, and it has, for me, and I can't speak for Coder Dan, but I've spent enough time with these people. I feel the ethos has bled out. We are looking for organic results. We do not want to pay for our success. We want to build this house ourselves. And so the things that I'm seeing about that are interesting to me is that, like, just the wider, more available media presentations. So things like comic books, things like Lens Protocol has been a huge success for Aavegotchi community, and we're doing really well there on learning how to use that. Friendless Summer is a GMI member that has also been working on full-blown scripts. So he's got 2 full-length episodes of the 9 Adepts, the lore and story of the Aavegotchi characters. And we've done live table readings of these episodes, and there's ambition to see an animated series arrive from these. We're looking at AI-generated text prompts. We're looking at AI-generated video prompts. As mentioned with the dev side of things, we have a lot of very promising DApp builders right now who are building really interesting looking games that don't have to operate at the pace of Aavegotchi and Pixelcraft. And that's where this is so interesting and exciting, is we've referred to these almost as mini games in the past, but these are starting to become not minis, but majors. And these major games will have the opportunity to let people, quote unquote, play within the Aavegotchi ecosystem with Aavegotchi assets without needing Pixelcraft to release full functionality of the Gotchiverse. And so we're creating just tangents off of the main core pillar here that allow a more engaging experience today. And so those are the things that are happening right now. That's not just a GMI thing, it's across the whole ecosystem. Our job at GMI is to sniff those prospects out as soon as possible and try to champion them loudly, so that way those people are inspired to come to market. We've seen things like John Gotchi with his Web3 school. He's built a very engaging educational Web3 onboarding platform that has nothing to do with being in the Gotchiverse at all. It's just Gotchi themed like crazy. And so we're watching all these types of platforms coming out. I think, as mentioned, we're seeing our Gotchisans, and it's not just about art creation, it's creation across the entire ecosystem. We're watching a real blossoming of enthusiasm from individuals that are like, what can I do? And it's, let's figure it out. Let's talk and let's figure out what you can do, and we'll get you doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I just want to point out really quick, Billy Bishop. We talked about devs in GMI, but Billy Bishop is working on I think it was Unreal Engine, a 3D first-person shooter as a Gotchi. Like, he was showing us stuff where he's trying to get Gotchi's arms into it. And I'm currently working with Gotchi Jam along with User OX Default, because they're building their own mini game. It's already built out. They're expanding it. The first multiplayer mini game in the Gotchiverse so far. And like now they want me to and thinking as a person who onboards people, I'm going to make some content, real simple content of how to set up a wallet, how to bridge to Polygon, and then how to rent a Gotchi so you can play this game. You don't have to understand all the crazy mechanics of Aavegotchi, which I fully encourage everybody to become obsessed with. But if you don't have the time for that, there's going to be a video where you can just literally learn how to rent a Gotchi and then play in these mini games, which is a whole the idea that Pixelcraft is fully encouraging us to build the next Pixelcraft, be it for gaming, be it for art, be it for whatever. So I think that's a big selling point for the Gotchiverse. And for me personally, I'm in Nashville. I'm one of the most vocal ambassadors. I have tons of Aavegotchi stickers that are in my drawer. I have so many. So I go and I talk about Aavegotchi everywhere. And for onboarding these people, I'll say, if we're talking just the Gotchiverse, the easiest sell was a spillover. Selling that you can get into this game via a rental, run around, spill over, collect it, reinvest it if you want, and then build up more and slowly grow out your farm and your base from there. So that was an easy sell. At this point, that's off, but it's still relatively easy to sell because it's a DeFi game in a bear market. So it's, hey, there's something to do, and it's relatively safe compared to all the other shit coins that you might touch. So check it out. We got the bonding curve. Volatility's blunted. Usually the bonding curve is a good selling point too.
Yeah, my final question about the guilds in general before we get down to the roadmap of what you guys are up to. GMI is doing fantastic work to evangelize this. Do you see guilds replacing what marketing does within these traditional startups? Do you think the guilds of communities are going to be the new PR and marketing wing for games now?
It's a good question. So it's maybe an evolving opinion. My current opinion is no, not at all. Aavegotchi Pixelcraft Studios has onboard staff for PR marketing, Gravy and Big Flex, and those individuals. Moon, head of partnerships. That's not what we do. That's not what GMI does. I'm not working to do Moon's job. I'm not doing Big Flex's job. I'm not talking to Associated Press to try to figure out how to get a story run on the CNET coverage. I'm not trying to figure out how to make a partnership with Coinbase Wallet to figure out integration on the platform side. We are very much just like the external independent marketing agency in a certain way. But as mentioned, it goes so much beyond that. It's not just marketing. There are marketers within the Aavegotchi ecosystem, and that's their job to do that. It's more like championing, which has its marketing vibes in it, but you keep mentioning evangelization, and that is what we do here. We're here to talk about what's going on within our ecosystem. I'm not so worried about talking to the external entities right now about what's going on here. They're going to see the glow. They're going to see the shine of the spirit force over here and just be like, what's going on? Because there's something there's people that are very excited and enthusiastic about what's happening over here. And I see GMI as being an internal marketing agency that's mostly meant to energize the community that already exists. Because if you can inspire one more current community member to really convert and become, as you mentioned, like an apostle, he's going to tell his buddy about it. And then that buddy is the new blood that comes in. We're not here to directly market externally. And I'm thankful that Pixelcraft has those people in place for those roles, because it's the hard work. That's grindy type work. It's not as much fun, and you get a lot of closed doors. And that's not what we want at GMI. We want a lot of enthusiasm and engagement and excitement.
What excites me, though, I will say about this whole model of the idea of startups going to guilds, we did the Aavegotchi live stream today with D-Work, and their model was actually really interesting. It was I was looking at it after, there are open submissions for various DAOs that need certain work, be it dev work or content creation, and you could submit and go for work. So it's I could see a future where GMI is an entity in D-Work, and we're just allocating our assets, our resources within GMI to do other people's content work if they need it, or dev work or whatever, so that we can build a treasury and continue to grow like that. So I could see that as a possibility. It is easier to keep it internal. I guess it depends on how the structure of the startup is. If it's we're about to do that sort of now with the DAO. If we do this DAO organization tooling that not D-Work specifically, but the one Mikey J and Dr. Wag push forward, say marketing, at least from the DAO's perspective, would be taken on by this new executive who's going to run, I guess, not task force, but people under him, essentially. I don't know if that would represent marketing for Pixelcraft, but it might be like Mycaleum said, we're standing side by side with Pixelcraft. So we're also additionally marketing Aavegotchi to a thing that we're all, because this is a cult, let's be real. We say apostles. you see my background? I'm start dating a girl and I'm like, yeah, I need to know that you're Gotchi gang. And she's Gotchi gang, but it's been through a process here.
Well, I think I've said too. And GMI is not trying to replace or compete with anything. We're trying, if anything, I almost consider it like a college. We want to graduate people. We want people to leave the ranks of GMI and be like, hey, guess what, man? I work for Pixelcraft now. That's my favorite thing ever to see. Is for someone to find, like with No Futures announcement here, that the official partnership within Orium Guild, that is an evolvement of his character. That's what we want to see. And so GMI is not trying to outcompete anything or replace anything. We're just trying to enhance everything.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that. The other part too is that it's really in Web3, what marketing is really evolving anyway with the incentive models and the different kind of the point of Web3 is to move away from the traditional model of ad space selling you everything and actually incentivizing the use of protocols and things like that. So marketing is also very much in flux across the entire space. So I think that in a lot of ways, like what I'm doing personally is trying to better understand the music business and how it affects Web3. And I think that making Aavegotchi music that gets people interested on Spotify and doing our podcasts, which are on Spotify, and having all these things that touch the regular world is a type of marketing, but it's not an unnatural ad space type of marketing. It's more like we're talking about something we care about, and people who care about it will feel welcome to come join us. And yeah, it's a different type of marketing. And it really does come down to the word community is so overused in Web3 and NFTs and everything, but it really does come down to people across the world feeling like they have somewhere where they can go and feel comfortable and belong. And I think that those will be the best ecosystems that do well here, you know?
Yeah, and speaking of ecosystems, now that you guys do a phenomenal job getting in that sort of content, the games being built, what do we expect from Aavegotchi, the DAO, and from you guys in general down the road? There's so much happening. What do we expect from the game? And first, who can go first here?
I'd say when I first started talking with Mycaleum about GMI, when he was telling me about this brainchild, well, my dream has always been since the very beginning, since I started, because I'm in a live streaming studio. I put 10 grand into this because I love doing the shit. And my goal is eventually to have a Gotchi television, like a 24-hour GNN, essentially, where we're like, it's just content. Like it's not, it might be news based. It might be just content, like posting different, ideally it starts at 8 hours. It's because I'm used to do live streaming, like building studios and planning out programming and stuff. So ideally getting a solid 8 hours a night and then replays overnight for the rest of the world, but building it out. So that's my like unambitious plan. I want to build the full Gotchi television station. But GMI it's much more expansive than just that. That's just my little brain nugget.
No, but that one's been talked about many a time, and it's still on the radar, and that is a worthwhile achievement. At least in terms of talk about like Aavegotchi the game. Right now we are limited to just the Citadel, and so this is phase 1 of the Gotchiverse. And so at some point in time, there will be the openings of the Citadel walls, and we'll be able to venture out into the grid, as it'll be known. And it will be the entire expansion of the additional in-game experiences, maybe potentially questings, fighting liquidators, looting. Liquidators are intended to be for people that want to be involved with the game but don't have an Aavegotchi proper yet. You can free play as a liquidator. You're going to be on the other side of my sword, but at least you can be there. And so those are the things that we're waiting to see in terms of the Aavegotchi team itself. The Fake Gotchis was, as No Future mentioned, like unexpected. We didn't necessarily expect this hard left turn for them to push so hard on an art culture push. I'm thrilled for it and happy for it. But and this is biased as can be, we have so much success here at GMI and so much fun. I am perfectly content with Pixelcraft focusing 100% on the game mechanics. They can just work on that stuff, and we'll take care of the culture side of the thing. So that's what we need from them is the grid, the rest of the Citadel, a little bit more of the gameplay mechanics. So that way we have more to point at for these people that do show up to pay attention to what we're talking about.
Yeah, I love how Coder Dan has said it's very much the Citadel is Manhattan, and it's Manhattan in the late 70s. It's empty. We're building. There's nothing there. And people don't understand that a couple years from now, the Gotchiverse is going to be going strong, and we're going to have built up our farms, and we're going to have art everywhere. And you're going to come in and be like, oh my God, this is Manhattan. This is Las Vegas. There's colorful, pretty lights everywhere. Where I've been sleeping on this. And so that's really where I see it going. Like we are in the early stages. We're setting up camp. And I'm glad that it's moving at the pace it's moving, because it gives us time to build out and to have a good footprint when other people start to rush into this and realize what's going on. So
Fantastic.
And then just touching one more on GMI specifically, like I think the thing we're the most excited about right now is this arrival of the devs, the arrival of the coders and the builders, because we've got the content covered. We got the media traditional covered. We do that stuff. And so it's so nice to see GMI just expand in a exponential way by bringing on technical skill sets that we never really anticipated even housing. And so that's got me very excited. And then in a more like tangibly legal discussion, GMI is looking at incorporation. We're looking at what we can do to become more of a legal entity, because Pixelcraft Studios and Aavegotchi DAO are growing as well, and they are needing more legal entities to be able to do these tangos with. And so if we continue to stay as this ad hoc little homegrown entity, we're going to hit the limits of our potential growth as an organization if we don't try to continue to also evolve. And so we've been talking with some registered agents and looking at some of the legal steps required to incorporate. And so that'd be the next big thing for GMI that'll give us a huge stamp of legitimacy and continue our path forward as we're able to continue to secure funding from Aavegotchi DAO and show that we're here for the long term. We've got GMIFriends.eth on a 30-year lease. We're here for the whole entire roadmap.
Wow. I think there's a lot to unpack there. The sort of work that you guys do, you were actually going to incorporate yourselves into a legal incorporation. That's pretty wild. The sort of passion you have, you've made this into an independent entity dedicated to supporting the arrival of the Citadel or the Grid, right? Is it the Citadel or is it the Grid?
The Grid's what's coming. Yeah, the Citadel's going to continue to build out, but the Grid's up next.
The Grid's up next. You guys are dedicated to make the arrival of the Grid happen. In that regard, and I would like to wrap things up, it's been a fantastic conversation with you guys. The GMI is the roadmap for what I see are emergent media guilds, that every crypto game can be used as a roadmap, as a platform to build out their own communities and their own passionate evangelists. Looking forward to Aavegotchi the game and the sort of work that you guys do. Where can people follow you individually, the GMI, and how can people contribute to your efforts?
So for the GMI side of things, really easy. The Discord's just discord.gg/GMI friends. We've got the GMI friends on Twitter, GMI friends on Lens as well. I will put an open invitation out there to any developing ecosystems or existing ecosystems that are interested in this type of structure that we've done at GMI. We're always happy to just discuss and share our progress and how it applies to all these other entities.
Okay, yeah, you can find me. I'm on my YouTube. I'm Music City Gotchi Gang. I think I'm the largest Gotchi gang out there, other than the Thailand Gotchi Gang. Shout out to C Recto for running that. On Twitter, I'm at NoFuturePhoto. On Lens, I'm NoFuture.lens. So it's either NoFuturistic or NoFuture, some variation of that. You can find me.
Yeah, I'm Zombie Shepherd on zombieshepherd.eth on Twitter and zombieshepherd.lens on Lens. And then my link tree is in my Twitter, so you can find other things, link YouTube and Instagram, whatever else. I do a little bit of everything.
You've got me all hyped up now. Both of the Abhisheks. Now I'm fired up again, man. I need more to do.
Oh, fantastic. It's been a pleasure. Now, one fun thing, guys. Before you wrap things up, for the sake of the Gotchiverse citizens, for the sake of the crypto world, this is a little bit of alpha. I read this from your Gitcoin grant, so go with me. I would like to lead the Gotchi gang into prayer. Would you guys join me in unison?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's go.
May our channelings be blessed.
May our channelings be blessed.
May our followers be blessed.
May our followers be
blessed.
And with friends like you,
and with friends like you,
we are definitely GMI.
We are definitely
GMI.
This
we say
in the name of
the
Father,
the Father, Son,
and the House of Gotchi.
And the House of Gotchi.
With that, take care, everybody. Have a great weekend ahead and stay tuned to the Fleet Podcast.